just said you're busy. That's all it said. Like the what does my brother got to do with this? You ain't do nothing to my brother.
Terry Boyd was really finna knock Boosie off. That's why Boosie had to get him gone. Boosie was really scared of Terry Boyd, for real, for real.
How many times did you shoot him, Marlo Mike? About 3 or 4. Howard, who gave you money? Marlo Mike. Boosie. Howard, how much? Marlo Mike, $2,800.
There you go.
Yo, face. Show your face, please. With sugar on top.
Okay, y'all, to this day, everyone's still wondering about the elephant in the room when it comes to Lil Boosie because of his past and being accused of having his friend / co-defendant unalive, allegedly. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but one thing about them streets is you can't trust nobody. Everyone is out for self. In this dog-eat-dog world, only the strongest gonna survive in the streets, and the minute you get comfortable thinking you could trust someone and something won't happen to you, usually that's when it does. Now, for years, it's been a thing where it's becoming more common actually, where if you get caught up with someone during a crime, we're seeing a pattern where one of the co-defendants are being taken out. This way you could pin everything on that person because, as y'all know, a dead man can't talk. Throughout the culture, there's been a back and forth on whether that's still considered snitching or not, because you're telling police that another man did a crime, whether he's dead or alive. Still telling. However, some people also feel that it's common sense, because if you could get away with a crime and dodge jail time by blaming it on somebody who isn't even here, then why not, right? Well, that's another discussion for another time. Today we're going to get into Boosie and Terry Boyd's story. According to rumors, they're saying that Boosie allegedly paid another man by the name of Marlo Mike to take out Terry, so everything could be blamed on him and Boosie could walk scot-free, allegedly. Now, the worst part of it all is that it's alleged that Boosie paid this man only $2,800. Yes, 2,800.00. Can you believe that? Once again, none of us know the 100% truth of why everything went down, or if it did. All we could do is speculate. And one thing I always tell y'all about the court of law, it's not what you know, it's what you could prove. Simple. But anyway, we're going to get into the story. Shout out to Dose of Mystery. I'll leave a link pinned to the original video so you guys can support more of their content. But in the meantime, make sure you hit that thumbs up button so we can get this video into the algorithm. And if you not subscribed to the platform already, make sure you do so now. Let's get into it.
I shot the last time, that was his 6th time getting shot. So don't act like I was on trial for a good Samaritan.
Terry Boyd was more gangster than...
Now, it's kind of crazy. See, starting out, you hear him saying something like that, keep in mind that this man and Boosie was actually friends. Boosie kind of like, I wouldn't say turned or betrayed him. Well, yeah. You can't cut it any which way, because once they started out as friends, co-defendants or whatever, yes, he was shot a couple times. Boosie's saying, well, he wasn't no saint, which is crazy because neither is Boosie.
And Boosie.
Your uncle got by your dad.
That's another thing. See, she said Boosie uncle got unalived by his father. What she's trying to say is that like griminess is kind of like in his blood. Think about it. Your uncle get unalived by your father? Crazy.
Baton Rouge was quiet on the night of October 20th, 2009. Terry Boyd had recently got out of prison. He was 35, trying to get his life back on track. For now, that meant staying at his sister's house on Vermilion Drive, a modest home in a relatively quiet neighborhood. Inside that house, Terry was surrounded by family. There was no party, no argument, no commotion, just a man on a couch, fresh out of prison, living out a slow night under a dim ceiling fan. Boyd wasn't new to danger. His body, according to the coroner, told a story of its own. 15 bullet scars and a previous slug still lodged somewhere inside him. But that night, there was no warning, no...
Damn, you hear that? The man's body already told a story. He had 15 bullet wounds. 15. That means he's been hit up 15 times and survived. Sheesh.
Chase. No face-to-face standoff, just the blink of a porch light, the edge of a curtain, and a clear line of sight from the yard to the couch. Around 1 in the morning, gunfire ripped through the window. The official call came in just after 1:30 a.m. on October 21st, 2009. Officers with the Baton Rouge Police Department arrived, and what they found inside was chaos. Glass everywhere, a shattered window, shell casings just outside, and Terry Boyd, deceased on the floor. He'd been sitting in the den, the same spot he spent most of the night. The shooter never stepped inside. They didn't have to. Investigators determined that at least 6 shots had been fired from outside the house, through the window. A 9mm, close range, quick, deliberate. There was no forced entry, no struggle, no words exchanged. Whoever pulled the trigger came for one reason, to hit. Police combed the yard with flashlights. Shell casings glittered in the grass, catching moonlight like teeth inside the house. Blood pooled beneath the couch and traced into the fibers of the rug. Family.
You know what that sound like? A straight up hit. Is it? They didn't want to come in the house. They didn't want to hit anybody else. They didn't want to make too much of a commotion. They knew exactly where he was going to be at, when he would be there, right? This is not just some random act of violence. This is not just somebody that maybe they had beef. No, it seems more like a hit than beef, right? Where they needed him gone because he had a bag on his head. Simple as that.
Family members were still there, frozen, panicked. Boyd's sister, the woman who let him stay with her after prison, could barely speak. Ben Hawkins, her boyfriend, was the one who called it in. A neighbor told police that he had seen 2 black men fleeing the scene. One wore a white t-shirt. They moved fast, cutting through a fence line and disappearing near the tracks. It was dark. No faces, no names, just silhouettes and the sharp scent of gunpowder clinging to the air. 10 days after Terry Boyd was gunned down in his sister's home, his family gathered at Winfield Farewell Home in Baton Rouge. Boyd was laid to rest on October 31st, 2009. It was Halloween, but the only thing haunting that chapel was grief. They called Terry by his nickname. Black friends, family, and old acquaintances who hadn't seen him since prison filled the pews slowly. There was no cameras, just people coming to bury a man who was trying to make his way back into the world. Terry.
Now you got to think about it, right? He just came out of jail. Unless he snitched on somebody, unless he unalived somebody and they had like knowledge that he was there and whatever the case may be, why else would somebody want to put a hit like that on? Why would somebody make it their business to come get you? Right?
Terry Boyd's name wasn't in headlines yet, but it would be. This case was about to catch fire, and the people gathered in that room would soon find themselves in a courtroom listening to prosecutors say that Boyd's hit wasn't just senseless, it was ordered.
Terry Boyd was really finna knock Boosie off. That's why Boosie had to get him gone. Boosie was really scared of Terry Boyd, for real, for real. If we keeping it a buck, we can get into some real history.
From the moment Terry Boyd's body hit the floor, the streets started talking. The official line was still blank. No arrest, no charges, no suspects. But Baton Rouge didn't wait on the paperwork. It didn't need a badge to make a connection. People in the neighborhoods, in the prisons, in the clubs, they already had a few names in mind. According to some, a jailhouse informant named Lee Lucas sent a warning to rapper Lil Boosie. The message was simple. Terry Boyd was planning to jack and slap him. Street code for robbing and humiliating. The prosecution would later say that was all it took. A perceived threat from a man Boosie didn't trust. A man with history. A man now freshly out of prison.
You see, Terry Boyd was finna knock off Boosie because Boosie was beating on his sister, which is the baby mama of the little girl.
Another.
Oh. Y'all remember that? That's, damn, I forgot, but it was a situation where they claim, and all this is alleged, that Boosie was beating on one of his like, I don't know if that was his baby mother or a side piece, but that was the rumor that was going around. That's how it initially began, because at first, these guys were supposed to be friends, right? So it's kind of crazy how it just all flipped, but the reason why it flipped like that is because of Boosie's actions allegedly with the female. So when people say, well, I thought they was friends, how did it come to a point to where they want to take each other's lives? Well, Terry didn't necessarily want to take Boosie's life. It's just that he wanted to humiliate him because of what he did. But with Boosie knowing the type of person Terry is, and I'm sure that he's not going to just let nobody slap him and take anything from him, he felt he probably had to strike first.
Version of the rumors said it had nothing to do with Boosie at all, that Boyd had robbed the wrong man inside, Michael Ghost Judson, and that Judson was the one who wanted him deceased. Judson, they say, had money, access, and a short fuse. He was also connected to some of the same people Boosie ran with, and when Boyd got out of prison, Judson didn't forget. But Judson was hit before the trial. Others argued that Boyd had too many enemies to count, that he was reckless with who he crossed, and someone finally caught him slipping.
You guys have one kid together or two? One. You prided yourself with giving all your kids a new car when they turned, 16? Yeah.
But for some, those theories didn't hold for long. Not when word got around that a kid named Marlo Mike had started confessing.
Yeah, see, that's how it started. It always started with a leak. Now, the Mike Judson guy, I never heard of him having beef with Terry. Maybe. But from what I heard, the rumors, it was with Boosie and Terry. I don't know who the Mike Judson guy is. I don't know who that is. But the Terry and Boosie, we heard that story.
Marlo Mike was a teenager who was soft-spoken and thin. He was always in the background of someone else's story until the bullets started flying. Then it was his time to shine.
Look at it. See that there?
Someone else's story.
See that? So if these are the two, right, guys that they think or the alleged suspects, look at the type of pictures they put on social media, right? Yo, Boosie, who's next? Crazy.
Until the bullets started flying. Then it was his time to shine. According to Baton Rouge police, Michael Louding wasn't just a kid with a gun. He was a professional, cold, calculated, a hitman who, between 2008 and 2010, allegedly carried out as many as 6 hits, sometimes for money, sometimes for loyalty, sometimes for nothing but the silence that followed. But it was the hitting of Terry Boyd that brought everything crashing down.
Boosie did what he was supposed to do, because Terry Boyd definitely's gonna get Lil Boosie out of here. Pittman, he a rat. He told on Marlo Mike, got 20 years, knocked off his prison sentence. But he ain't tell on Boosie though. That's why Boosie went free. So he told on Marlo Mike. Marlo Mike and Ghost when it took Lil Terry Boyd up out of here. Pittman was the driver though. You know what I'm saying?
Louding was arrested in May of...
Oh, wow. Hey, I don't know if this was after or before, whatever the situation, but Bucko sound like he know a little more than the actual suspects. Right? He's saying who the driver was, who the shooter was, who the... Sheesh.
2010, and interrogated for hours without a lawyer or parent present, just a teenager in a police station, slowly realizing that he had talked himself into a corner. What came next would shape the entire case. He confessed.
How many times did you shoot him? Marlo Mike. About 3 or 4. Howard. Who gave you money? Marlo Mike. Boosie. Howard. How much? Marlo Mike. $2,800.
There you go. See, I tell y'all all the time, I don't know whether it's these rappers got different laws than the average citizen. Maybe it's the money. I don't know what it is. But what I would tell you is this. Something like this where you have the suspect telling you that he was instructed to carry out a body where somebody's no longer here anymore and told you who instructed him to do it. You see right now how Little Durk is facing M for hire charge. I don't understand how Boosie got around that. Maybe Durk got to holler at Boosie. But this right here is crazy. I never seen somebody beat something like this until I seen Boosie.
They called him a hitman for hire, a teenager turned assassin under the influence of fame, money, and music. Suddenly, the rumors had a face, a name, a hitman, and a question no one wanted to answer out loud. If Marlo Mike pulled the trigger, who told him to? On tape, Michael Louding admitted to shooting Terry Boyd through the window of that Vermilion Drive home. He named names. He walked detectives through the timeline. And most importantly, he said Lil Boosie paid him to do it. $2,800 cash. That moment, a teenager...
Yeah, they... $2,800 cash. Man, I don't care if you put cash on the end, dollars, yen, dólares. It's $2,800. He tried to make it sound like $2,800 cash. Bro, that's $2,800 for taking a life? Maybe if people knew the value of life being so low, maybe they'll be a little cautious with who they play with. Because as you can see, $2,800 to take somebody's life is nothing. Sheesh.
Calmly explained a murder for hire tied to one of the South's biggest rappers was the bombshell prosecutors needed, and they knew it. They also knew it wouldn't hold up without a fight.
Let me run it again. He was a convicted child. Convicted. He beat 5 charges. He was a known robber in the city. He beat his mama with a 2x4. He been shot 29 times on 6 different occasions. If anybody came to my trial, you would have saw his body up there with 29 marks in it. 29 times shot over on 6 different occasions.
All new tonight.
I get what Boosie is saying, and you know what's crazy? I remember that live like yesterday. Now, what Boosie is what he did, he tried to go on like a smear campaign by doing that live. Because people started saying, wait, hold up. Something ain't adding up. One thing don't have to do with the next. I don't care if he so much as hit his grandma with a 2x4. The initial point that we're trying to get to is the fact that you may have had something to do with him losing his life. Forget what he did, because that's not what we're talking about. You can't diverge or try to deflect from what people are saying by bringing up whatever so what? That's like somebody doing something to Boosie and say, well, Boosie is a convicted felon and he sold drugs and he did. That has nothing to do with the tea in China. So that's what he tried to do, and it kind of backfired because at that point, people kind of was feeling like Boosie was guilty.
Tonight from Baton Rouge, a prosecutor says rapper Lil Boosie hired a hitman to kill another man.
By the time Lil Boosie went on trial for that hit, the courtroom felt like a stage. The state called it the state of Louisiana versus Torrance Hatch. But to the rest of Baton Rouge, it was Boosie versus the system. Marlo Mike had already confessed to the hit. In that taped interview, he told police that Boosie paid him $2,800 in small bills to take Boyd out. He said,
that's crazy. You would think that right at that point, case over. Right? And listen, shout out to Boosie, because he found a way to get through whatever loophole. Hey, I ain't mad at you. You did it without telling. You did it, whatever you did. At the end of the day, let's be clear that the person who is suspected of taking this man's life cooperated and said that Boosie told him to do it and paid him $2,800 in small bills. And you know what's funny? If you pay attention to little intricate details like that, he was paid in small bills, right? What's the running joke about Boosie these days? Everybody be like, well, Boosie don't like to pay. Boosie, Boosie always trying to get this for free. Boosie. So to hear that he paid $2,800 in small bills, that sound about Boosie.
said Boosie handed him the cash personally. But by the time the trial began, Lowney had changed his story completely. He told the courtroom he lied during the interrogation, that he hadn't hit Boyd, that Boosie never paid him a dime, that he'd been threatened by detectives, told his mother and stepfather would be arrested if he didn't talk. He claimed they said Boosie had put a price on his head, $25,000, to have him hit, and that he panicked. The jury looked at...
Oh. So they don't know which one it is. They don't know whether... Oh, I see what's going on. What happened is he changed his story. 9 times out of 10, he got a call or a visit and said, I'm going to tell you right now, if you so shall go further with what you said and you told them people, just know your whole family may be out of here, including you.
At him, then looked at the evidence, because there was more than just a confession. There was a tattoo. A photo taken 2 weeks after Boyd's hit showed Louding in Boosie's house, getting fresh ink across his stomach, an AK-47, and above it, the words, "Yo, Boosie, who's next?"
Wow. Hey, so it's safe to say that the silliness that these guys been doing and putting on social media isn't new. They've been doing it. Right? Been incriminating themselves. They think this is cool. Right? They think this is cool. Yo, Boosie, who's next? Let me tell you, like I said, man, I don't know what it is, what type of lawyers these guys be having, but what they're allowed to get away with when common sense is right there. But then again, like I always say, it's not what you know. Unfortunately, it's only what you can prove.
When asked about the tattoo in court, Marlo Mike shrugged it off. It's just a tattoo, he said. It don't mean nothing. That flip didn't stop prosecutors. They had something else. Boosie's own music. On the night Terry Boyd was hit, Boosie had been in his home studio recording a track. The song was called 187, a reference to the California Penal Code for homicide. The lyrics were aggressive, targeted, and some of them mentioned a gray Monte Carlo, the same kind of car Boyd was known to drive. One line stood out. Yo, Marlo, he drive a Monte Carlo. I want him gone today. Here go the cake. Cake, slang for money. Hours later.
Oh my Lord. Yo, it don't get no, like I said, I don't know whether it's the lawyers, it's the money, or it's, hey, Marlo, he drive a Monte Carlo. I want him going today. Here's the cake. And this is recorded the same exact day this man loses his life. And they got a confession from the suspect who did it. And he still walked. Hey, this right here might be a little more interesting than Johnny Cochran's case with O.J. Simpson. Right? Because, I mean, at this point, we know that O.J. ain't do it. Maybe he did. I don't know. They started talking about the gardener and that we never... Anyway, that's another story. But the fact that this man had everything up against him and still walked is crazy.
Boyd was shot through a window, and just after that, another song, Body Bag. In it, Boosie rapped about brains on the wall and said, "Rockabye baby." Prosecutors said it wasn't a coincidence. They said it was a confession. The state painted my music wrong, countered Boosie. My music is violent, but not all of it. I have songs about God, my kids, and telling other people's kids to chill out and go to school and do right. My music helps most kids avoid that street life because it scares them. My fans aren't blind to the consequences. Another piece of evidence was a phone call that Boosie had made to the mother of one of his children, in which he threatened her and their shared child, as well as made vague references to the hit of Terry Boyd.
The video says you're busy, that's all it says. What does my brother got to do with it? You ain't do nothing to my brother, huh? Yeah, I was here to swim. Like, you ain't do nothing to my brother. No. You ain't do nothing to my brother. You ain't do nothing to him. Please, like him. You ain't do nothing to him. He ain't do nothing to him.
The defense called no witnesses.
Oh, wow. Yo, all this and Boosie. Let me tell you, I knew about this case. I don't think I knew they had this much evidence. We was always under the impression that, you know, the guy recanted on his statement, say he didn't do it. He was pressured. That was it. But no, they had more song lyrics, phone voice recordings, referring to the hit, music lyrics, confessions, tattoos.
Didn't need to. They said the burden of proof was on the state, and the state had failed to meet it. On May 11th, after 9 days of testimony, the jury came back not guilty. Boosie broke down in court. His mother cried beside him. Outside, supporters erupted in cheers. He beat it. Someone shouted, "Boosie's home soon." But after Lil Boosie walked out of the courtroom a free man, someone still had to pay. Marlo Mike, then 20 years old, had already confessed to hits. Whether or not Boosie ordered any of them didn't change what came next. In April 2013, almost 4 years after Terry Boyd's passing, Louding stood trial alone. No rap lyrics, no flashy headlines, just a teenager who once bragged about bodies, now fighting for his life. It didn't take long. The jury found him guilty of first-degree hit in Boyd's passing. They didn't buy the recantation. They didn't believe he was coerced. They looked at the confession, the ballistics, the tattoos, and they made their decision. When sentencing came down, Judge Trudy White didn't hold back. She called Louding a cold-blooded hitman, said he was infected by Boosie, said he had been sent on a hit mission. Then she handed down the only sentence the law allowed, life in prison, no possibility of parole. Louding apologized, told the court he was sorry, and if he'd known the pain he'd caused, he wouldn't have done it. But by then, it didn't matter. The families of Terry Boyd and the other...
So y'all see what just happened? Let me break down exactly what just happened, right? And for y'all youngins out there that's watching this and y'all glorifying that street life, you got these OGs out there that steer you wrong and they make it seem cool to do all the wrong things. Pay attention to what he just did, right? He basically admitted to the police in court that he was instructed by Boosie to carry out that hit for $2,800. After that, he recanted his statement saying no, I didn't say that, I was coerced, I didn't mean it, whatever the case may be. Now, it allowed Boosie to get off scot-free with no charges, no M for hire charges like what Lil Durk is going through. So that took him out the equation. Meanwhile, him, on the other hand of that, now the jury wasn't buying his story. They don't care. Boosie got off. But if you think that they was going to let two people get off of that body with all the evidence they had, you got another thing coming. So what happened was he was basically the sacrificial lamb. He's the so now, yeah, you got Boosie off, but now you, life in prison without the possibility of parole. You helped this man that sent you on a dummy mission to go. Now you got nobody but yourself. Crazy.
Others he was linked to were done listening. Loudon would spend the rest of his life in Angola, Louisiana's most notorious prison, while Boosie, just a year later, walked free on his separate dope charges. On March 5th, 2014, Lil Boosie was released. The internet exploded. Boosie's free trended.
Y'all see how Boosie look? This is a whole nother subject, but I always said some wasn't right. This Boosie looked nothing like, and don't tell me age. Don't tell me age. I'm talking about facial features and that. Anyway, that's a whole nother story, but
Worldwide, fans celebrated like it was a holiday, and Boosie wasted no time before going back to mocking Terry Boyd's passing.
I mean, supposed to sneak a coward, nigga. Couple years later, I caught him. Charged for my baby mama, brother. Lay down.
Boosie had beaten the hit chart.
So as you can see, the man got out, walked scot-free, and the person that did it and was instructed to do it is inside while this man is out still trolling this man losing his life. Damn.
But for the people who knew and loved Terry Boyd, it wasn't a win, it was a wound. One they carried while the world cheered.
His daughter mad about her uncle still. She mad that Boosie clapped her uncle down. It's as simple as that, man.
Damn.
In the end, one man was gone, one was locked away, and one went back to the booth. Rest in peace, Terry Boyd.
All right, y'all. First and foremost, shout out to Dose of Mystery. They do a hell of a job with these stories because it's not like they drain them out and drown them out. They put a lot of details packed into like a small, version so we could be able to react to it and it don't kind of drown it out. But anyway, as y'all can see, man, Boosie's past isn't so sparkly. Let's say that. I want to say another word, but it's YouTube. But it's crazy, man. I never knew this in depth of the story. I was mostly under the impression that Terry Boyd and Boosie had a falling out with each other. I do remember that they said it was over Boosie's girl. Come to find out it was his baby mother. And lo and behold, Boosie was wrong the whole time for putting his hands on a girl. When her brother tried to defend her, that's when all this happened. But it all started with Boosie first putting his hands on her. But then once I heard the evidence they had, and then how they pretty much sent Marlo Mike up the river, and then Boosie came out and still trolling, that's crazy. That's the streets for you. It's a dog-eat-dog world. For the youngins out there that's watching this, I hope y'all learned this is what we do this for, to spread awareness on crazy stories such as this. Y'all jump in the comments, let me know what y'all think about this. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell so you're notified every time we drop new content. And remember, as long as you keep on watching, I'ma keep on dropping. And I'm out.